This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com. I just finished listening to that Dutch Mantel podcast on this channel that John Paz did, where he talked about wrestling in prisons, how he got in WWE, the Fire Vince Russo TNA chants, and a lot more. And I always like listening to Dutch. Met him a bunch of times, interviewed him myself. I suggest people check out that interview, but I will get right in to the daily wrestling news update. And it was announced on SmackDown tonight. I watched the Twitter part of it, and it's funny. This is like the main news out of Raw was Sasha Banks and Naomi not wrestling. Okay, that was more interesting than anything on Raw. The main news out of Dynamite was CM Punk coming out in a pro-abortion shirt. And the main news out of SmackDown is WWE announced that through Michael Cole that Sasha Banks and Naomi have now officially been suspended and they've been stripped of the tag team titles, and there's going to be new champions crowned. So funny that on the three main wrestling shows, nobody seems to give a damn about anything that happened as far as the wrestling shows. I couldn't even tell you who CM Punk wrestled on Dynamite, because all anyone's talking about is the shirt that he wore, trying to bring politics into wrestling. Will that get you more viewers? I don't think so. Will it get people talking about it? Yes. I don't think it'll get you more viewers. And the funny thing is about what I think about this whole Sasha Banks Naomi thing, when they're talking about it on SmackDown and all this, that would be fine if they had just said that they left the building and they're being suspended because they didn't defend their titles. But WWE already put out a public statement saying they had the opportunity to practice the match. They felt safe with the opponents. They'd wrestled the opponents before, and they still chose not to have the match because they didn't agree with the creative. So now they're mixing the backstage with in front of the camera. So whenever that's happened in the past, it always leads to less interest in wrestling. Remember when Vince Russo did that creative control angle in WCW? Didn't really help ratings. And I'm not saying he didn't have all bad ideas. He had a mixture of good and bad ideas. But yeah, I'm just saying it's pretty bad, the interesting stuff that happened in wrestling this week. Anyways, I'll get into more of the details of this whole Sasha Banks Naomi thing from the Wrestling Observer. Apparently, Sasha's 30, Naomi's 34. They were supposed to be in a six-pack challenge, six-way main event to build for the SmackDown and Raw singles women's titles for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view coming up. The plan was for Naomi to pin Sasha Banks to win the match and face Bianca Belair. And then Banks would challenge Ronda Rousey for the women's title. And both of them were supposed to lose on the show. But they would defend the tag team titles on the July 2nd Money in the Bank in Las Vegas. Both Banks and Naomi didn't like the suggested angle and suggested instead defending the tag team titles against Nikki and Doudrop. Vince McMahon turned down that suggestion, and they packed their bags and handed the tag team titles to John Laurinaitis and left the building. So basically, even though they're being paid by a company to do a job that they both make a lot of money for doing and actually became stars from that company, they no longer wanted to do the job they were told and instead expected the company to do what they want. Very similar to Bret Hart. I guess Corey Graves, who is the Raw announcer, had to say on the air that Sasha and Naomi were unprofessional by leaving the arena and not doing the match. And he took some heat for saying that, apparently, even though the line was just being fed to him by the people running the show. As it is an entertainment show, you're supposed to say whatever they tell you. So now they have made that statement regarding the suspension due to that. And they bring up, Meltzer brings up that WWE did suspend Steve Austin without pay in 2002 when he refused to come to TV for a match where he was supposed to lose to Brock Lesnar. But at that point, there was no AEW or anywhere else for Austin to go. And WWE really bashed Austin after they did that. And Meltzer brings up that Austin never became as popular again. And he does bring up a good point here that Austin's situation was different because with Austin, there was nowhere else to go. So if WWE didn't mend the bridge with him, he couldn't go to WCW or another company like AEW because they didn't exist anymore. And also the reason why he didn't want a job to Brock Lesnar on the Raw was because he felt that was a pay-per-view caliber match and he should get the money from a pay-per-view match versus Lesnar rather than being thrown into a TV match where he doesn't get pay-per-view money, because at that time it was before the whole network thing. Or if the network had happened, there was still like big money in pay-per-views where there's hardly any in it these days due to the network. You would get pay-per-view bonuses in the old days. So he had an actual really good reason for walking out because he felt that was a waste of having that match. Let's be honest here with the whole Sasha Banks thing and all that. Whether that match, whether they're on a pay-per-view or not, really isn't going to make any difference to a buy rate. I knew who Sasha Banks is. I hardly knew who Naomi was, other than that she was Jimmy Uso's wife, which, to be honest, I wasn't even sure if it was Jimmy Uso's wife or the other Uso's wife until recently. I don't think she's a big pay-per-view draw, but apparently her contract was going to be up soon anyways. And they bring up that because she is married to one of the Usos and they're cousins by marriage to Roman Reigns, that she has a lot of pull with the company should they want to go to bat for her. So that's all the latest on that drama, which is currently the most interesting thing going on in WWE. But I'll be perfectly honest with you, I'm already sick of hearing about it. Ric Flair, who hasn't done a match since he fought Sting on Impact on September 12th, 2011 in Orlando, Florida, the Universal Studios soundstage, will be returning to the ring July 31st in Nashville as part of SummerSlam weekend, but this will be part of StarCast in Nashville at the fairgrounds, which Meltzer says will be set up for about 1,400. And by the way, I'll give you guys a little piece of news. I did talk to somebody from StarCast today, and they might actually be bringing me in to help cover the whole StarCast event. So I might actually be at this Ric Flair's last match thing and covering it for the Hannibal TV this whole weekend. We'll know more in the coming weeks. I'll keep you guys posted. Meltzer brings up that because it's StarCast, they didn't want to take the risk of running the big building in Nashville or run the Carolinas or Atlanta, where Ric Flair is most legendary. And Meltzer says that it's a bit of a disappointment to have his last match in front of 1,400 people at the fairgrounds. But then he also brings up that it might be a bit of a disappointment to some that he didn't end his career at the 2008 WrestleMania in the match against Shawn Michaels, which, by the way, Shawn Michaels didn't end his career there either. There's some ex-WWE or WCW announcer, Chris Cruz, trying to write to the Nashville Fairgrounds and counselors to try and not let Flair wrestle. I truly believe this guy is just trying to get his name out there. Flair has brought up he's been training with Jay Lethal, and it's a 6-man tag team match. My God, this is not an MMA fight. Abdullah the Butcher, when he wrestled me the last time, I think he was 68. And in far worse shape than Flair. He couldn't even stand up. I had to hold him up because he was walking with a cane at that point. He's in a wheelchair. And the only time I could let him go is if he was leaning against the ropes or leaning against the guardrail, because he couldn't stand by himself because he was so fat, and also his hip was gone. And to get him in the ring, I actually had to get behind him and push him. Just to get him into a van, you had to put a milk crate down and get behind him and kind of shove your shoulder into his ass just to get him into a van. So, I mean, that guy was in far worse shape than Flair and still wrestled. So I think Flair will just be fine. He looks in phenomenal shape. Apparently, the Clash in the Castle September 3rd WWE UK show has sold more than 30,000 tickets at this point. Tammy Sitch, a.k.a. Sunny, was returned to jail. Her parole was revoked on May the 13th after the Circuit Court of Volusia County rescinded her bail because she was charged with DUI manslaughter. And the state attorney filed a motion to put her back under custody due to her past history, and the motion was ruled in her favor. The lawyer had argued that Sitch had already violated her probation on 3 prior DUI charges in the state of Pennsylvania and did not have a driver's license at the time that this crash where she allegedly killed someone took place. And it was said, quote, "The state submits that there is substantial probability that the defendant committed manslaughter when she killed the victim on March 25th, 2022, and that she poses a threat to the community based on her criminal history, including repeated driving offenses. Sitch had a blood alcohol count of 3.5 times the legal limit and was driving with an open bottle of vodka. She was taken from the courtroom in handcuffs to jail after the decision was made by the court," the state attorney stated, end quote. And it was also stated, quote, "A deadly driver will reside behind bars until her case is resolved. A serious threat to the driving public has been removed," end quote. So I think we can all agree, yes, she's not trustworthy to not drive under the influence. And she has a history of causing damage to people while doing that. So good call there. And she's shown no remorse on social media since that incident. She actually, I think King of Connecticut said it, and he's had sex with her before. One of many people I know that have had sex with her. I'm not going to name names, I guess. Oh, Jim Duggan, on a sad note, 68. Not that the Sunny story wasn't sad, is battling cancer for the third time. He had kidney cancer back when he was still in WCW, but made a recovery. He recently had his prostate removed. Now the cancer's back and he has to go through more treatments. And he said it's a terrifying time for him and his family. So I do like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and I'm really sorry to hear about that. As far as this Parker Boudreaux guy that was fired not too long ago, who was known as Heartland in NXT, and everyone was saying he was going to be the next Brock Lesnar. Apparently, Edge had chose him to be the fourth person in his Judgment Day stable. However, Ringside News reported that apparently the reason why he wasn't added to the stable was because WWE found out something about him and made the decision to release him based on that. They also felt he was not improving and he was getting hurt too much. Jim Ross has signed a new deal at 70 years old with AEW. His first deal with the company was the largest contract he ever signed in his life, which means bigger than when he was head of WWE Talent Relations. Also in AEW news, I highly disagreed when they brought in Big Cass to job to Wardlow a few weeks ago in like a 5-minute match. I don't think it did anything for Big Cass. I don't know why he would even have agreed to it other than money. And then they brought in Johnny Mundo, John Morrison, but I guess he was known as Johnny Elite. And he did like a 5-minute job match, maybe even less than 5 minutes, to Samoa Joe on Dynamite. And John Morrison, I like John Morrison. I think he's a really good wrestler. And I see in both John Morrison's case and in the case of Big Cass, like, why would you not hire them and give them a push? Why use them and just job them out? I just don't get it. They're so much better than a lot of guys you have under contract. And it just seems like that's horrible ways to introduce them to your audience. PCO, former Great North Wrestling champion, got injured at the recent Impact tapings, doing a cannonball onto the ring steps, causing his shoulder to pop out. I guess, do whatever you have to get over, but my God, this guy. He's lucky he can still walk in his 50s. Very, very tough guy. I mean, I've wrestled him. He's beat me. I've beat him. I did beat him the last time I wrestled him. My last match as Hannibal was actually a victory over PCO. Just for the record, for anyone that doesn't know. And he is a tough guy, but to do this on Impact that hardly anyone watches, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. New Japan Pro Wrestling had their biggest crowd in the U.S. since the pandemic, with 2,641 paid for their Capital Collision show in Washington, D.C. New Japan is so boring to me. I couldn't even tell you who's in it. Again, for these Wrestling Observer reviews, I only really report the things I find interesting. Nothing about what I skimmed over about New Japan interested me. Apparently, NBC has now shifted WWE Raw from being categorized as an entertainment television show to a sports television show, in an attempt to increase its ad sales and perception. WWE tries so hard to say that they're just entertainment. And they're more of a TV show than sports. And here we go. The company that owns the Peacock Network, which owns the WWE Network now, is trying to now say they're sports. Stephanie McMahon has taken a leave of absence as chief brand officer from the company. Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, says NXT is going to be opening another performance center domestically and others internationally. He has said this before years ago and it never happened, so take that with a grain of salt. And apparently NXT house shows are going to be back. They haven't had house shows for years. So most of these wrestlers have been having their first match on TV, which is why the popularity has gone down so much. And they're going to be running buildings that hold about 200 to 400 fans. They will not be nationally touring. They're going to be mostly doing shows around Florida. Dynamite from Houston did a 0.33 rating, 4,800 paid. NXT did a 0.14 rating. Rampage from the same Houston taping did a 0.12 rating. SmackDown did a 0.4 rating from Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, had 5,800 paid. Raw from Norfolk did a 0.45 rating this week. They had 7,000 paid for their fourth legitimate sellout this year, as WrestleMania and Royal Rumble did not sell out. In UFC news, Cain Velasquez was denied bail by the judge in Santa Clara Superior Court. Sports Business Journal named UFC the Sports League of the Year based on business numbers. Apparently, ESPN pays them $175 million per year. And last year, they took in $460 to $500 million in pay-per-view revenue from UFC events. Now that is compared to WWE selling its network to Peacock for $200 million a year. So UFC said that they'd rather sell their pay-per-views to a network and not have to worry about the ups and downs of the pay-per-view business, which is the same reason why WWE sold their pay-per-views to a network, which could be one of the very reasons why both WWE and UFC pay-per-views are overall less intriguing now, because the company gets the same money no matter how many or how few watch them. Do you really think if WWE did not have that network deal and was getting pay-per-view money, that they wouldn't have announced before WrestleMania that Austin was going to have a match and Vince McMahon was going to have a match? So many people would have watched if they had pre-advertised that. But obviously they're making more revenue than ever, so good for them. They don't need me as an advisor. In XFL news, which is owned by Dwayne Johnson and run by his ex-wife, Danny Garcia, they have a 5-year television deal with ABC Disney for games to air on ABC, ESPN, and FX. The league will begin on February 18th, and the deal gives them exclusive rights through the 2027 season. The season will have 43 games, 40 regular season games, 2 semifinal playoff games, and the championship game. So I wish him better luck with the XFL than the past XFLs have done. I am not a football fan, but I have watched more XFL than NFL just because of XFL's relation to the wrestling business. Get into your questions, and then I'm going to go out there for a run. I did a long workout today. I did chest, back, biceps, triceps, and abs. I'm getting in really good shape these days for my Blood Hunter Thirst and Rage movie, which will be going into production this summer, and I'm really excited about it. And to help fund this movie, I am auctioning off my famous purple mask on May the 31st, Sunday, May the 31st at 9 p.m. right here on the Hannibal TV. I'll get into some of your question, Ralph. As I said, I'm getting ready to go for a run. The weather is nice out there. It's hot and humid, and I love running out there when it's hot and humid. Yes, Roger, we are live. Matt R. is one of our members, which, by the way, I love our members. And let me show you something new that YouTube is doing for the great members. And yes, we're live. I'm just getting this idea now because we are absolutely live. So let me just cut and paste this so you don't see everything else I have open. Now, sorry, guys. Thanks for tuning in on a Friday night at 11:55 p.m. I think we're going to cross over the days. Is it a holiday weekend in the U.S. this weekend? It is in Canada. Sorry, I'm showing you guys something for the members of this channel, such as Matt R. That's new that YouTube is doing. If you look at the homepage of the Hannibal TV, for instance, which, by the way, we have 322,000 subscribers now. Thank you for all the support. Now what YouTube is doing to thank the members, it actually displays some of the members on the main page. And I think our memberships are like $1.99 a month. I will prioritize your questions, but you're helping support me and projects I have and interviews I have. But as you can see, for the people that just have letters, that's one thing. But some of the fans that are members, their pictures are actually on the main page of the channel. So I thought that was pretty cool of YouTube to do. Paid programming. CM Punk, the worst UFC fighter ever. Well, people liked watching him get beat up. Tom says that the pro-abortion favors his fan base. He says good for him for wearing it. Could you imagine Hulk Hogan coming out in a pro-abortion shirt? Or The Rock? I don't care what you are. I try to be politically neutral on here, even though people like to paint me with political brushes from all the sides all the time, depending on how much you hate me or whatever. But like, that's all people are talking about from Dynamite. Wouldn't you rather have something interesting happen on the show? When the most interesting thing is a pro-abortion shirt, your show fucking sucks. I'm sorry. Roger, I have sold all of I always sell my masks after my matches. I've sold all of my masks except for the purple Blood Hunter mask and a black mask. And I will be auctioning off the purple Blood Hunter mask on May 29th. It's been on TMZ, the New York Post, New York Daily News, UK Metro, UK Sun, Toronto Sun. It's a very famous mask. It still has blood on it. It's only going to go up in value. So someone is going to get it for the right offer. Tom, no, those wrestlers do not have creative control. Big 21, I don't think that whole angle is a work. It does nothing to benefit anybody. It exposes the business. It makes Sasha Banks and Naomi look like a bunch of whiners. And for their fans that support them, it turns them off of WWE and the WWE product. And for WWE, they lose two of their main female stars. So Ken says he would just fire those overpaid morons. Well, they might not fire. I agree they are overpaid. But fire them to go to AEW, I don't think they'll let them out of their contracts. There'll be some type of fine. Matt Joseph says, garbage men get paid to do a job. Yes, there's a lot worse jobs out there than wrestling for the people that say, by the way, oh, imagine if you were in their shoes. WWE builds you up so you become famous, so your value so your name has value even when you leave the company. They have medics backstage. They have agents that tell them what to do in their match. They don't even have to think about their matches. There's catering. They get merchandise money. They get paid huge contracts. I mean, most independent shows, as we found out, a lot of them don't even have insurance. So if you get a serious injury, you got to go to GoFundMe or have your own insurance. Most of them don't even have medics backstage. Sometimes you don't even get paid on the indie scene. There's so many scoundrel promoters out there. And you're driving everywhere for the most part. They're spoiled. So I have no sympathy for them. I've worked in sawmills. I've bounced. I've done physical labor jobs. I love my job now, but I don't have pity for them whatsoever. They know what they're getting into when they sign those contracts. If they want to do what they want, do what I do. Have your own promotion and do whatever the hell you want in it. JW says that she should do all promotions. Well, Banks is still under contract. I don't see WWE letting her out of her contract. See, the thing is, when you're still under contract, she will not be able to wrestle anywhere else without getting sued and have the company she's wrestling for getting sued. So again, if she has to sit out and not do anything for the rest of her contract, her name will have less value by the time her contract runs out, and she can do stuff because she won't be fresh in people's mind anymore. Sean says Austin did the right thing. There was zero buildup, yes. And Austin was a legitimate draw, main event star, the biggest thing going at the time. Matt R., a great member here. WWE should just freeze their contract. They probably will. They didn't let CM Punk out of his contract. There was a legal situation regarding Brock Lesnar and Steve Austin. So they're not just going to let them go. And Tom, women's wrestling in Japan is not going to pay you anything like what WWE pays you. I'm not even sure if New Japan, which is the most popular company there, which is less popular than ever, even has a women's division. Fly believes they'll be released before the suspension is up. They're not going to release them, because if they release them, they're going to go to AEW. They'll sit them out their entire contract. Paid programming would fire them. Roger says I should do another Goon interview. No, thank you. I don't like being disrespected. I try and not let... I get attacked by people constantly. And for the most part, I don't let it get to me. For the guy asking about the beginning of Sasha Banks, just rewind to the beginning. I'm not going to say it again. Gabe says they should fulfill their contracts. Matt says CM Punk was a UFC punching bag. Correct. Ralph says a contract's a contract. Yes, and by the way, you have to get those contracts notarized by a lawyer. You're not allowed to just hand it in without getting a lawyer to sign it. And when the lawyer signs it, he makes sure that you understand what the hell you're signing. And they aren't good. They don't give you a lot of freedom. But you know what you're getting into. They're out of it. You become famous and you become rich more often than not. I think Triple H said it not too long ago that there was no one on the main roster making under 250 grand US. And they've hardly been doing house shows the past few years. AJ, I have never seen you're asking me about a movie I have not seen. I did watch and do a report on the recent UFO Congress meeting. Bill Ottawa gave me this shirt. It says I would be a perfect fit for the NWO. Yes, Bill did give me this shirt. Thank you to Bill. Shout out to Bill. Hope you're still watching and can see me giving you a shout out. Biggs says kayfabe. Oh man, my eyes are getting tired. I've been up a long time today. Bill says when I do my forest runs, I should howl like a wolf. I love running in the forest. I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's very relaxing. Very, very relaxing. Someone says, I should stop talking about running in the forest. I'm going to get out there and do it soon. Bill, again, I'm going to put you up because I'm wearing your shirt. Yeah, I wouldn't see Hulk Hogan coming out with an anti or pro-abortion shirt. I don't know. I'm not even commenting on that. I just don't think politics belong in wrestling. And for the person there was a troll that said him wearing the pro-abortion shirt is no different than the gimmick they did with Sergeant Slaughter. Sergeant Slaughter was a hated heel at that time, getting heel heat. Is that pro-abortion shirt make him a heel or a babyface? Because some people are pro, some are anti. Doesn't do anything. Bill believes wrestlers have been abused by promoters and underpaid. Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Unless you're in a big company, there's nothing good about being an independent wrestler. Trust me on that. There isn't. Other than if you're truly doing it for the love and you don't care about the money, because there's a lot of scoundrel promoters out there in the independent scene. There are some good companies out there, but they're few and far between. And how many of these independent, remember Wrestle Circus, which everyone was raving about just a couple of years ago, doesn't even exist anymore. These companies go out of business because there's no money in independent wrestling. Only very few actually last. NWO for life. I don't know if Buff Bagwell's actually sobered up or not. I saw a video of him recently where he didn't look quite sober. I think he's a loser. That's my thoughts on him. And on that note, wish everyone a great night. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Follow us on Facebook at The Hannibal TV. All of our live streams are ad-free on Facebook. We're also on Instagram and Twitter at The Hannibal TV, and become a member so you can be featured on the front page of our channel, like these fine members, and you'll help support the great work that I do on this channel, because my dad's not a multi-billionaire like Tony Khan, and I don't have all the money that these companies like Ring of Honor and MLW and New Japan and NWA have, but I still beat them in YouTube views. Imagine if I was actually booking for those companies and running their channels with actual funds, how good they would be. But that's not going to happen because of politics, so I'll just keep making my own way and growing thanks to the support of great fans like you. So cheers. Have a great evening. Thank you for watching The Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Facebook at the HANNIBAL TV for more live streams and videos. And while you're at it, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the HANNIBAL TV.